It's time for another edition of A Rank Punditry. We do it every week here on the New Hampshire Journal podcast. We have failed to uphold our standard of rankness, alas, because we have the lovely and talented Caroline McCaughey joining us for the first time. She writes for the New York Sun, but more impressively, she writes for the New Hampshire Journal. Caroline, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And of course, he's a legend in Republican political circles for all of the wrong reasons. Chuck McGee is with us once again. Hey, McGee, I got to no, I'm not joking. The best feedback I've gotten from any of our ranked pundits is for you so far.
The bad boy
now it's
of
not
Republican
impressive
politics.
because it's not much feedback, and the number two person is Michael Dennehy, so the bar is very low. But I did want to let you know that as low as it is, you've achieved.
Michael's got the face for TV, and I've got the face for radio.
So, since we are not politically correct, we will not start with ladies first. We'll go to McGee first. What's 2026 looking like here on May Day? 6 months. 6 months-ish to go. How's it looking?
I knew it wasn't the same New Hampshire I grew up on when I got to UNH, and my economics professor gave us May Day off. I'm like, why do we have May 1st off? And I couldn't even contemplate it. 26, right. It continues to mystify me. There are some days that I think it's going to make 2006 look like a garden party, and there's other days that give me hope. That Warmington just cannot seem to get out of the blocks. I mean, she's stumbling all over the place, and the hits aren't landing, and she's just not getting any traction. There's other days where, nobody can seem to lay a glove on Stephanie Shaheen. She's just going to run a Biden basement race and count on the name. Pappas, who should be way ahead at this point, just based on fundraising and based on being an incumbent, albeit, in Congress versus the Senate. But, he's the typical John Lynch, Maggie Hassan, don't do anything, don't upset the apple cart kind of guy. He's just not closing a deal. And I think this thing in Maine, I think it's gonna cost Washington a lot of money for the Democrats. So
I'm gonna stop on the Maine. I want to save Graham Platner is too delicious to just be thrown in on the appetizer tray. We're gonna have him
I think we're still looking good it's on the state side. I'm confident on holding the state Senate. The House is always this crazy animal that swings back and forth. So who knows? A lot of that's going to be recruitment dependent. But I believe we're going to do okay at the state level, and the federal is still going to be a struggle.
So Caroline, you actually talk to humans, not to just other political flacks like McGee and I do all the time. When you talk to normal human beings here in New Hampshire, what do they think? Is there just like, the Republicans are dead, or we're doing great, or the Democrats are doing great? What are you hearing?
I think real concern about the federal races. I mean, there's no, the truth is I don't hear anybody talking about the first congressional district race, except maybe on the Democrat side. Yeah.
But isn't that seriously?
I've heard things about
there's
Shaheen
900
and
candidates,
Sullivan.
and you're in the district, and you don't hear people talking about it.
No, I bet you if I polled just my friends, they would have no idea who's running, except for Shaheen and Sullivan.
Sure.
And I actually went to a event for all the CD1 candidates on the Democratic side, and I found Sullivan actually kind of an interesting, very well spoken, pretty impressive person. Certainly among the pack, I thought she was the most impressive. So we'll see. The Shaheen has the name, so that means a lot.
Yeah,
I agree with you. By the
Moira's got an extra $500,000 in the bank, but she's going to need every penny of that extra $500,000 just to make up the name ID that Caroline talks about.
Yeah,
but I happen to believe in that experience counts in a winnable race. So let's assume, and it may not be. Let's assume that there is a chance for a Sullivan-Shaheen competitive race. Don't you agree, Chuck McGee, that the fact that Maura Sullivan has been here and done this, she ran back in 2018, she spent the rest of the time kind of working politics, that she's got her muscle mass up. If she can get in a race with Shaheen, I don't know. We don't know yet if Stephanie Shaheen can take a punch.
Going to cost an awful lot of money to throw that punch. And what are you punching at? What are you punching at? That she has no experience, that she hasn't done anything? I mean, look, the chicken tender guy didn't have a big resume either. I mean, he was one term on the executive council, and he was pretty middle of the road, milk toast, do nothing there. I mean, the name ID, has been millions and millions of dollars over the last 2 decades, and it's super hard to overcome. And Shaheen stepped on herself a little bit with the girls' boys sports thing, but look how that's working out for Moulton down in Massachusetts. I mean, he's going to lose to Mr. Frosty by 20 points. I mean, it's too late from the run for Congress, so that's the end of Seth Moulton.
I'm with Caroline. I think if you see Maura Sullivan, who's very rehearsed, I would argue over rehearsed, but she knows her stuff. Next to Stephanie Shaheen, it's possible to have a stature gap when one of them has answers for questions.
Go in front of her? Why are they going to go on the same stage?
Well, I got to ask you, Caroline. Stephanie Shaheen she was not at that gathering, was she?
No, she was at that gathering.
Exactly.
But, you know, everything on the Democrat side is very tightly controlled. Who can come? You had to RSVP, you know, multiple times, go through this big security thing. There were no questions asked from the audience. There were pre-selected questions. Come on, you know, it was a joke, kind of. So she was there, but there was no confrontation. I mean, nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's our experience at Hampshire Journal. If you're showing up to actually ask questions, no one is interested in talking to you. We got to talk to Cindy Warmington earlier this week because she had a press conference outside, which Chuck McGee, you and I know that's just what the hell are you thinking? Don't ever, pro tip, no, unless you're doing something about like the ocean or the trees or something like that, do not be outside. It's terrible. I love it. As soon as everyone starts talking, this truck is unloading like clams or something, and the engine's the whole time behind. The WMUR video guy's rolling his eyes. But because it was outside, they couldn't kick us out. And so we're able to show up and talk to Cindy Warmington. And she was trying to hit Governor Ayotte, Caroline McCaughey, on the issue of the ongoing problems at the Youth Development Center, now the Sununu Youth Services Center, and the fact that there's a new investigation, et cetera. And it reminds me of what you were saying about the first CD, and no one's talking about it outside of political circles. I just don't hear people talking about this issue. So big picture, are you hearing much about the governor's race at all? And number two, do you think that there's problem at a youth facility for troubled kids is a political issue that's got legs?
I've never heard anybody speak about it ever. Not interested. I mean, It's just not an issue, you know. Sometimes this is weird, but I actually told Sununu this. The guy at my fish counter, John Sununu.
John E.
John E. Sununu. Yes. Yeah,
I'm sorry. I hate to do this, but in New Hampshire, you have to work your way through the whole list of litany of the Sununus.
You know, he's not involved in Turning Point at all, but Turning Point is going to invest to help get out the vote. AFP is doing that. Right. And I was saying, you know, the guy at my fish market, he's concerned about the war in Iran and the gas prices. Right. I'm pretty sure he voted for Trump. Have I asked him point blank? No. Sure. I doubt he's coming out for this election. Mm-hmm. I doubt it. And those are the kind of people that you need to actually turn out if a Republican's going to win. So those are the issues people are talking about. Nobody's talking about the Sununu Center. They're just not.
And you make a great point about turnout. So my theory of the case, as you know, Chuck McGee, is that the problem is just going to be not enough marbles, that Democrats are going to turn out like crazy. And it's not that Republicans are going to turn on Republican candidates, not like Johnny Sununu. It's not that they're going to be anti whoever Kelly, they're just not going to show up. There will not be enough bodies on election day for Republican candidates to compete with Democrats. Is that looking more or less likely right now, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, that's $1 million question. How do you get the good old boys, the fishermen, the loggers, the mechanics, the HVAC guys, you know, the battlers, as I call them, they're out there battling every day to make ends meet and keep us going. And you know, they need something. They need a win somewhere. They need a reason. And right now they're feeling pretty beat down. So I think this TP USA thing is going to be vital. Just candidates complain to me all the time about the cost of campaigning, and I said, well, there's a direct correlation between the amount of money spent and the turnout. There just is. You may not like to hear that, but the more money spent, the higher the turnout. So we're going to need those door knockers and the money spent on that front, along with the air power from the senatorial committee on the Sununu race. I mean, it's the only way to make it happen. I don't know where the RGA is going to be at this point, if they're going to look at Kelly and think Governor Ayotte, is safe, and just put their resources elsewhere. But it'd be really nice if they could throw some money in as well. And I just think that it's proven, at least 2025 proved very difficult to move Republicans. In my experience in Connecticut and some other special elections, you look at that Wolfeboro race that we should have won. That I think that was a candidate issue, but we got our work cut out for us. There's no doubt about it.
No, it's fascinating because normally the concern is that primary voters are red hot to turn out. And so in the primary, you go to your base and you go to the more extreme. And that's why you got these Graham Platner types, whatever, they're going to the extreme. And then for the general, you tone back because the general election is going to be about these more swing candidates. Republicans, because of Trump, have the opposite problem. Their, quote, base only shows up if Trump's on the ballot. And so how do you get them to show up this November? And Caroline McCaughey, the question I have is, could it be the case that a race in Maine actually helps with some turnout because it gives Republicans something to run against, which is, oh my gosh, if we send federal people down to DC, whether it's Chris Pappas or whoever, they're going to be working with nutburgers like Graham Platner. Now, I'm just impressed by any guy who can simultaneously own the Nazi brand and the communist brand. How do you do this? It's like the living von Ribbentrop plaque right there in front of us. You're over there by the border. Is word of Graham Platner, is that a story that's crossed over to the New Hampshire side of the line?
I mean, certainly. He's charismatic. He's young. People are angry, particularly on the Democratic side. They're tired of basically old people who play it safe. And he's following the Mamdani playbook. I mean, he's also using Morse Cats. Very smart with social media, with videos. He just tells it like it is. I mean, I understand the appeal, and I go to Kittery quite a bit, like to go out to dinner and stuff because it's so close. I see the Platner signs. I think there's just excitement there. And, he may not be my cup of tea, but but I get it. I do get the appeal. Yeah.
And the question the question though is, because of the media that's going to be purchased by the NRSC. I don't know if you guys saw the quote from the guy with the SLF? I forget what that stands for. The leadership, Senate leadership. Yeah. He said that the all-out attack is going to be so brutal on Graham Platner, he's not just going to lose, he's going to have to move out of the state of Maine. That's how bad they think it's going to be. You're going to see those ads, right, Caroline? They're going to be on your TV,
100%.
Right?
We'll see the ads. So maybe that will drive people out, Republicans or independents who just don't want some of this kind of far out socialist type economic policies, or just some, the kind of like third worldism, pro Gaza sort of diversity above all that kind of stuff that people I think are tired of, just kind of like normie people are tired of, even if they're not so political. Independents. So that could also drive people to vote for Sununu. Sure. Sununu's got a brand name that's pretty kind of moderate in some ways. It's not the Trump brand. So
exactly.
So yeah, it could help. It could help.
And back to your point, Chuck, about turning people, money helps, but also if there's a race that's interesting, and right now New Hampshire doesn't have any interesting races, if the more interesting the election is, whether that's because there's a guy with a Nazi tattoo on your TV, or that's because Pappas and Sununu are going out or whatever, the more interesting, that also helps drive up turnout, right?
Well, it does. And unfortunately, our candidates tend not to be that exciting guy, right? I mean, I'm pretty worried about the Maine race. I'll be honest with you. I mean, you've seen it. It's it started with Fetterman, where like
Right.
these guys can they can do anything they want. They can say or be or do anything they want, and they just create this cult like following. And it started with Fetterman, then you had it with Mondami, like Caroline said, and now you've got this rich elite oyster farmer, quote unquote oyster farmer, and I think the guy could I think the guy could get away with murder at this point, and they'd still be rah for him. I knew we were in trouble with him 6 months ago when my friends in Bangor, Maine, told me that the signs for the guy were everywhere. So,
right.
I don't know how you compete. I mean, Pappas is, Chris Pappas is a play it safe kind of guy. So,
absolutely.
I don't know. I think the money is gonna. I think there'll be some crossover. I don't know if they'll buy into the Boston media market for Southern Maine, but it's certainly going to be a lot.
They're going to have so much money on that race. They're going to buy everything.
We don't want to get too far afield here.
They're going to buy kids backpacks and school. They're going to rent out space on everything. Everything is going to be this. They're going to spend so much money on that race because it is the hinge race for the control of the Senate. If Republicans can hold it, Democrats got nowhere to go.
Well, the other element that plays into this regionally is, Minogue down in Massachusetts running for governor. Right. He's already spent $10 million. He's going to spend another $10 million. That's big money. So there's going to be a lot of stuff on the airwaves and on your screens, one way or the other. And again, the volume is going to hopefully boost our side.
Yeah, it's funny that we're looking to other states.
Exactly.
Because, Sununu's sort of, he's by the book. He's not that exciting. Chris Pappas, he's a gay man who's happily married and his family invented chicken tenders. Like that's all there is. Like you can't write more stories about chicken tenders. So nobody's really focusing. It's just not that exciting.
Man. And issues will not do it. I was talking to a person who's working in campaigns here in the last 24 hours. And it was like, so should we be focused on this issue or should we on that issue? I was like, dude, nobody cares. It is all going to be how mad are you at Trump? And then how afraid are you of the people who are mad at Trump? And that's why I think Platner, whatever the impact individually is, I don't know how you measure it, but that storyline, I think, is going to be the storyline. Who's going to be more motivated? The people who want to show how much I hate Trump, or the people who are terrified that, oh my gosh, you crazy people get in charge. Who knows what's going to happen next?
There is still the dynamic of the Democrats out there talking about affordability. This is the party that, hammers your pocketbook and kills your paycheck. Talking about affordability. I mean, it doesn't exactly pass the smell test. Right. Right? You can be mad at the Republicans about the gas prices, but the Democrats want an income tax in New Hampshire. I mean, no, I thought this issue was dead, and it's like a gift from God. They keep giving this income tax. They just roll out a 3% income tax and a $3 1,000 statewide property tax. It's just that they keep giving us ammo.
But the question is, Caroline McCaughey, have your friends even heard about this income tax conversation? Has that broken through?
Not really. I mean, I haven't, not with my friends. But I will say that if that issue were, if people were really campaigning on that issue, that could be the deciding factor. I know, for real, because I mean, that's a concrete thing. Like, people don't want the income tax. And also a lot of people who moved here during COVID, myself included, I mean, a lot of us came from very high tax states. And I'll tell you, we like New Hampshire, like having more money in our pocket. And also the services here work. Everything's kind of functional in the state compared to New York
Look, I lived at 81st in York for a while back in my misspent youth in Manhattan. And so I know, that's one of the things that's so amazing about New Hampshire. I have people in other states, how can you guys possibly make anything work without a sales or income tax or something? And I go, I lived in high tax states. Things work a lot better in New Hampshire than they did in your rat hole. What are you kidding me?
Try going to the DMV in New Hampshire versus New York. Okay. That's all I have to say. Case closed.
Right. So, what else? You reported a great story for NH Journal. Thank you very much, Caroline. And you talked to AFP, TPUSA, et cetera. What other issues are organically coming up right now in the current state of the races?
I mean, I think like economic stuff, right? The economy. I hear a lot about the war in Iran.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much that's going to be a driver for the polls, like for people to get to vote, but I do hear a lot about that.
So I don't hear that
And
much about the
housing
war.
prices. That's,
Oh,
those are the
housing
things I
prices.
hear about. Yeah.
So you are still hearing housing prices.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So McGee, I'm not hearing a lot about the war. I'm just hearing about the gas prices. It's so fascinating to me that we've got this actual war thing going on, and people are like, "Well, I don't know, I don't get all that, but damn it, I just paid $4.25 for gas."
I don't think any of us understand what's going on with the war, where the war is going to go. It doesn't sound like it has a happy ending for us. But I think one of the issues that nobody's talking about at this point is healthcare. I think healthcare is a sleeper issue.
Okay.
I think healthcare costs have continued to rise. I think people continue to be stressed by healthcare bills. I think people get healthcare bills. I saw a guy post online the other day, said he doesn't pay a medical bill for a year because it just changes and the insurance and the hospitals duke it out. And pretty soon the next, $1,500 bill turns into a $50 bill. So people are confused and frustrated about their health care, the access and the bills and how does it work, and the pricing and the insurance cost itself is up. So I think healthcare is another issue. The issue that I'm kind of surprised about is electricity.
Yes.
I'm a kid of the '80s, and the fact that we're talking about bringing back nuclear just blows me away. I'm very optimistic about that. I think it's great. I think it's clean. And then just a last point, not to monopolize the conversation, but
please do.
This might be the first time in my political career since 1992 that abortion is not like it's not being talked about. It's on nobody's radar. Not a soul is talking about this issue. It's nowhere in the polls, and it's like we've moved on. It's just not something to use against our candidates.
Right. Are you hearing about abortion in your circles, Caroline McCaughey?
No.
Exactly. No. So this is what I tried to tell you this, McGee, in 2022, and you wouldn't listen to me. Yes, 2022 was terrible with Dobbs because it really fired up, pro-abortion voters and particularly suburban women. But every 2 years, I told you, every 2 years, I told you the temperature would go down, that this was a net win because it was going to take abortion off the table and the issue would just be gone. And it would take that battery out. And so now the battery is Trump. Trump is the entire battery for the Democratic vehicle that as it moves. My question is, what do they do when Trump's gone? For example, we'll wrap up with this because this is total speculation. Nobody knows anything. We are all as smart as everyone on this. If JD Vance is the nominee for Republicans, is 2028 a good year or a bad year in New Hampshire? Chuck McGee, we'll start with you.
If JD Vance is the nominee for president, I believe it's going to come down to who the Democrat nominee is. I am a firm believer that the most likable candidate wins. And quite honestly, our vice president can be a little quirky. I love his Catholic faith. I love his family. I love his story. But sometimes he's hard to connect with. And I think that's going to prove challenging for him.
Caroline?
I agree. I think it really depends on who's running on the Democratic side. I mean,
it is hard for me to imagine a candidate designed to be less appealing in New Hampshire than JD Vance. I mean, I'm like what can you? He's going to be Trump. He's going to be Trump light, and New Hampshire hates Trump, and then he's religious, and New Hampshire is very it's one of the most secular states, and he's this kind of off-putting white guy. I mean, geez, I don't know, man. And that's my point is
Marco is a faithful Catholic, man. I mean,
the Republicans are feeding Democrats their victories.
I don't even know if Marco Rubio would do better in New Hampshire. I mean, there's a lot of anti-Marco Rubio sentiment, especially from more of like the libertarian types. And, they make up a significant portion of the Republican Party in the state. So I think, I think maybe Vance is more appealing to those people.
I agree, but that's not a general election. Chuck
Yeah.
McGee, I think Marco Rubio would rock in a general, but not JD Vance.
I think Marco would have a better shot at the general myself.
Yeah. So that's my point is, as awful as this might be for all you Republicans who are watching out there right now, there is a shelf life. The bad news for you is you've got 2 more meals at this terrible restaurant where everybody hates what you're serving. But then after that, who knows? What I do know is we are very lucky to have both of you on the podcast today. Chuck McGee, thanks so much. I think you're going to hold your record as getting a lot of response. Caroline McCaughey, terrific debut. I got to give you Rookie of the Year. Thank you so much for being part of the conversation.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.